Welcome to OptinexTech. Today, we'll be building a fully customizable and reusable dynamic button component in React. Let's dive in. First things first, let's set up our React project. If you haven't already, create a new React app using Create React App. After project is successfully created, open the folder and remove unnecessary files from src folder. Now, open index.js file and remove unwanted code. Do same thing for app.css and app.js. Now add header as React components. Let's run the project using npm start command. You will see output in browser. After that, create components folder inside src. In components folder, create button folder which has button related files. Then create those files inside button folder, button.js and button.css respectively. Moving to our button.js file, we start by importing the button.css file for styling our button component. Next, we define our button component. It accepts several props: label for the button text, onClick for the click handler, variant for different styling options, custom styles for inline styles, custom class for additional CSS classes, icon for an optional icon, and loading to indicate if the button is in a loading state. In the return statement, we use a button element and apply several classes to it, including btn, the variant prop, and any custom class provided. We also apply any custom styles via the style prop. We add an onClick event handler for button's click action. The button is disabled if the loading prop is true. Inside button, we check if loading prop is true. If it is, we display a span element with the spinner class, which will show the loading animation. If loading is false, we check if there's icon prop, and if so, we render it inside span with icon class. Finally, we display the label prop as the button text. We then export the button component as the default export from this file. Now, let's move on to the button.css file, where we define the base styles for our button. The btn class applies padding, removes the default border, rounds the corners with border, radius, sets the font size, and changes the cursor to a pointer. We define the .btn primary class, which sets the background color to a blue shade and the text color to white. The .btn secondary class sets the background color to a red shade and the text color to white. To add a subtle hover effect, we use the .btn hover class to slightly reduce the button's opacity when hovered over. The icon class styles the icon inside the button, adding a right margin and aligning it vertically with the button label. Finally, we have the spinner class for the loading animation. This class creates a small circle using borders, with a different color for the top border to create a spinning effect. We use at keyframe spin animation to rotate the spinner infinitely. To start, we import button component from the components directory and then use state hook from React, which will allow us to manage the loading state of our buttons. Create div with the class buttonFlex, which will hold our buttons. The first button is labeled submit and uses the primary variant. It triggers the handle submit button function on click and will show a spinner when the loading state is true. The second button is labeled cancel and uses the secondary variant. It triggers the handle cancel button function on click. The handle submit button function triggers on submit button click. It sets loading to true, shows an alert saying button clicked, and after 3 seconds set timeout resets loading to false, turning off the spinner and restoring the button's original state. Next, we define the handle cancel button function, which simply displays an alert saying cancelled when the cancel button is clicked. The button flex class applies a flexbox layout to the container holding the buttons. It centers the buttons horizontally with justify, content, center, and adds a gap of 32 pixels between them. Now that we've completed our button component, it's time to test it in the browser. You should see the heading React Components with 2 buttons below it, Submit and Cancel. Click the Cancel button. You should see an alert that says Cancelled. Click the Submit button to trigger loading. The button text changes to a spinner, indicating processing. After 3 seconds, the spinner disappears, and the button returns to its original state. And that's a wrap. You now have a fully customizable, reusable button component that you can use in any React project. If you enjoyed this tutorial, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.